Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News. It is so cold here and I'm indoors. The cold is seeping through the glass and concrete, so there's basically nowhere you can escape in all of New York City. I think it's like 3 or 5 degrees outside right now, not counting the wind chill, but this is happening all over the country today. I think they're calling it like a polar vortex, which is coming in from the north, and it is just unusually cold. I think it's even worse in the Midwest, I was reading. So if you're here in the United States, write down below how cold it is where you are. And if you're someplace in the world where it's warm, feel free to brag down below as well. And you can rub it in, or at least give us nice warm thoughts. All right, so it is early January. That's part of the reason it is so cold. So not a lot is happening in Hollywood. But I think I managed to scrape together a pretty interesting episode, and I hope you agree. The first story is about Steven Spielberg and the next project that he is considering. You know, he passed on American Sniper. I think that was on his front burner. He was going to make with Bradley Cooper. I think Clint Eastwood picked it up. But now he's kind of, he's open. His next film, he doesn't know what he's going to make. And it looks like he's circling Montezuma, which might be called Cortez, because it's about the conflict between the South American, leader Montezuma, or Mexican leader Montezuma. I'm sorry, I don't know my South American history as well as I should. And the Spanish explorer Cortez. And I believe the script is told from Cortez's perspective. So even though it's called Montezuma, they could flip it around and call it Cortez, because that might make more sense. So Spielberg wants to direct this, and Javier Bardem, his name is being mentioned to play Cortez. I think that would be a fantastic choice for Bardem. He's basically just sitting back right now and letting projects come to him, and they are. He turned down that villain role in the Peter Pan film from Joe Wright, which I felt was a mistake, and I hope he picks this one. I mean, if he lets too many go by, they might stop coming. But I think this would be a really fascinating role for him. I think he'd be very good at it. And also, not a lot of films are made about South America. One of the most famous ones is Apocalypto by Mel Gibson, a very good movie, by the way. And what's the best things about it is it's in Mayan. It's in the native language. And he did the same thing, Mel Gibson, for Passion of the Christ, which he directed, which was in Aramaic, Hebrew, and Latin. And it's very difficult for the actors, and you have to read subtitles when you're watching the movie. Although I think there actually were not any subtitles in Apocalypto at all. You just kind of had to figure out what was going on. And that, I think, adds a feeling of authenticity, especially for this historical films. Like, for instance, in Valkyrie, Tom Cruise couldn't do a German accent, so everybody just used whatever accent they came on board with. So you had British accents, American accents, and I kept being like, who's a spy? Who's really working for who? I just couldn't get into it. So I like that Mel Gibson went so far. And I feel bad that, while he really hurt his on-screen persona with the horrible things that he said in real life. I mean, at this point, only white guys can go and see a Mel Gibson movie and not feel like they're kind of betraying what you yourself should stand for, because he's just misogynistic, racist, anti-Semitic, just basically anything you can think of. But I feel bad that a part of the result of that has been dragging his wonderful films that he directed through the mud. Although some of you don't like Braveheart, which I was really surprised to find out. I mentioned it in another video recently, and on the comments, a lot of people were like, that piece of crap. And I was like, what? I love Braveheart. Very good movie. I mean, I guess it takes some liberties, but I still think it's a good film. And I think if you've never seen Passion of the Christ or Apocalypto, get thee to a rental place, or I guess go online and download those if you can. Very good films. I think you'll like them, especially if you like historical films. But back to this Montezuma project. The origin of the project is almost as fascinating as what it might become with Spielberg and Bardem. And that's because it comes from a 50-year-old script, a very old script by Dalton Trumbo, who is a screenwriter who was blacklisted in Hollywood. He was very famous before he became blacklisted, and he basically had to write under a pseudonym, and it really hurt his career and almost ruined it if he hadn't, ghostwrited a number of scripts after he was blacklisted. And he wrote it for Kirk Douglas. They made Spartacus together. He had written that script. I love Spartacus. I have a very special place in my heart for it because my 3rd grade teacher had us watch it when I was little. And I thought it was great that he showed Spartacus to a bunch of 3rd graders. And I have very fond memories of the film. It's just a good movie as well. But, that's a good, so you can tell that Dalton Trumbo does a nice job. And anyway, this script's apparently been floating around. And you have to wonder if maybe the movie that they're making about Dalton Trumbo, that's in development or about to go into pre-production, and Bryan Cranston will be playing him, maybe that headline, that movie was moving forward, got Spielberg to say, well, let's go and see if there are any Dalton Trumbo scripts lying around that maybe I might, want to direct. Or maybe he wasn't even thinking it that way. He's like, oh, I'm going to read some Dalton Trumbo. Thanks for reminding me about his great work, movie that's being made about him. And then he was like, why didn't anyone make this Montezuma movie? I'm going to make it. And also to some degree, I think it's a nice sense of, justice for Dalton Trumbo, who refused to, name other people, even though he was being blacklisted and, fought the system, the McCarthyism. And, I think that would be very noble of Spielberg to, have the script finally see the light of day as a film. So that project's coming together. A lot of interesting things about that's going to be on screen, and also the backstory there about how it came to be. And I think, don't kid yourself, I think that Spielberg is also thinking of using that backstory, that it's a Dalton Trumbo script from a writer who was blacklisted, to help it maybe during awards season. What a great narrative for the Writers Guild and the Producers Guild to really fall in love with and such. So that's very interesting. And so that's another good thing to think about, how these films sometimes come together. You're like, well, what story am I telling, not only on screen, but behind the camera, to try and hook Hollywood's sympathies. All right, so that's the first story of the day. The second story of the day, sorry, I have the sniffles because it's so cold in here. I can't believe I'm indoors and I'm cold. Okay, the second story, I was delayed because of family obligations watching the U.S. premiere of Downton Abbey. Watched it last night, so much fun, even though Lord Grantham, Robert, is so annoying. I mean, I think every soap opera, and it is a soap opera, has to have like an annoying character, but boy, is he like just so frustrating and stupid. But anyway, the whole episode largely, or double episode, it was 2 hours. Everyone's like, oh, we miss Matthew. Matthew's dead. What does Matthew's death mean for everybody? Well, Lady Mary, get over it. She does. Kind of. So some of you might be wondering, maybe Dan Stevens, the actor who plays Matthew, made a mistake in leaving. That's why he was killed off. He was like, I need to get off the show. I want to pursue a movie career. And so far, he's really only been in the Fifth Estate, looking totally different, by the way. He's lost so much weight, he could qualify for anorexia, and he dyed his hair black. So he looks very, very different than he did on Downton Abbey. But I think that's partially to distance himself from the role. So, and he's really that's the reason so many people died or left the show. Lady Sybil, that actress also wanted to leave. She's in Winter's Tale coming up with opposite Colin Farrell for Akiva Goldsman. And also O'Brien left because she didn't want to be on the show anymore, because apparently when you make these BBC shows, they're a big time suck and you really can't work on other projects. So that's why so many people left. And I think Julian Fellowes, I was impressed with how he was able to deal with all these people leaving the show and still make it seem organic and not like, oh, the plague is going to come to town and take everybody away. I think it worked pretty well. But anyway, so the question is, did Dan Stevens make a mistake? And does he have anything coming up? Well, I think he does. I think he does have some very interesting projects coming up, and I think he was right to leave. He's really the first big name to leave the show, although a lot of you noticed Hugh Bonneville, and I pointed him out in the Monuments Men trailer. So he's someone who's like, hey, look, I can be on other projects and still be on Downton Abbey, but that's not really a lead role. It's a smaller role. But still, Dan Stevens wants to be a movie star. He wants to parlay his Downton Abbey success into that. So, and I think he has some very good projects coming up that might actually be leading to that. And I think it's always good to be the first one to jump ship, to be the Justin Timberlake of your group, because I think afterwards maybe, if you're not the first, it doesn't always work so well. You want to be the first to get out of there. So what does he have planned? Well, first coming up is a smaller film. He has some art house films coming out, but I'm mentioning the big ones that I think could really help his career. The first one is semi-big. It's called A Walk Among the Tombstones, and it's opposite Liam Neeson. And I think that would be very good for him, and I think Liam Neeson's pretty hot right now. And also, people just enjoy good Liam Neeson films. So if Dan Stevens can kind of, grab onto that and be like, well, do you enjoy a good Dan Stevens film? That could help him immensely. But then the next two are the big ones. The first one is Night at the Museum 3, where he'll be playing Sir Lancelot. I think that would be very big for him. Amy Adams was in the second one as Amelia Earhart. I think that helped her a lot. And I think it will give him a box office win on his resume and introduce him to a large-scale audience. Night at the Museum, Ben Stiller is not doing very well right now. Secret Life of Walter Mitty, box office disappointment. I mean, largely because it's so competitive right now in the box office. And I think his film doesn't seem like oh, you need to see this right now, especially on the big screen. And it's a medium. I know some of you have written that you really liked it, though. I only thought it was medium, but some of you were really enchanted by it. So if anyone's looking for something to see and you haven't seen that, maybe you want to try it. It's not horrible. You're not going to be like, saying that you could just take a nap while you're in there. I mean, it's not a bad way to pass the time no matter what, even if you don't fall in love with the movie. And Sean Penn's performance in there, even though it's really just one scene, is quite good. But anyway, his Night at the Museum films do very well for Ben Stiller. And I think this one's coming out at Christmas time. It's going to take place in London because Ben Stiller is going to go and work, after working in the American Museum of Natural History, the Smithsonian. Now he's going to go to the, one of London's famous museums. And I just think this sounds very cozy and wonderful. Ricky Gervais is coming back, Robin Williams, they have a lot of different characters. And so then you'll have Sir Lancelot with Dan Stevens, so I think that will really raise his profile. So that's great. And then he has another film coming out. You might have seen the picture was released, the first still. It's an Adam Sandler movie called The Cobbler, but it's one of his more serious films. It's going to have some comedic elements to it, but it's, it has a little more gravitas. It's not going to be just like Grown Ups 3. The still's really just Ben Stiller, Ben Stiller, Adam Sandler. They're kind of getting to be the same, but the still is just really Adam Sandler coming out of a cobbler shop, and the film is called The Cobbler, and basically it's where when he fixes someone's shoes, he like gets a chance to walk in them and experience their life. And Dan Stevens is in this movie, as is Steve Buscemi, Dustin Hoffman, and Method Man. So that's a pretty interesting cast, and I think that, you have Dan Stevens getting himself next to Ben Stiller and getting himself next to Adam Sandler. These are big names that have a very big, loyal audience here in the United States, and I think it will, start to make people be like, oh, hey, who's Dan Stevens? So if he can nail these roles, I think he is on his way to doing quite well. And I think the next person trying to break away from the show, she just did a Funny or Die one, is the actress who plays Lady Mary. We'll see if she can also, I think it's Michelle Dockery, if she can also transition as well. But Dan Stevens is first out of the gate, and as you can see, it's taken him a while to land these roles and have them hit theaters. So he was right to do what he did. I think he made the right decision, but I'm curious what you guys think. Did you miss him from Downton Abbey, the first episode when you watched it? Those of you in the UK have already seen the whole season. Do you think the show recovered, and do you think Dan Stevens will do well now that he's left? All right, so that's the second story of the day. The third story, oh yes, I thought this was very interesting. We've been discussing a lot of Wolf of Wall Street on this channel. I had major problems with the film. A lot of you, not just the nudity, a lot of you took away that was my main problem with it. I felt that I had problems with so much like surprise nudity and perversion, but also the fact that, when you took the perversion and the nudity away, you were left with nothing. I thought the movie was really lacking. And that's a criticism that's some of you actually really love the film though, but the criticism that's being lobbied at Wolf of Wall Street is that it celebrates and tries to, and makes these guys, Jordan Belfort and his fellow criminals, look good. It kind of puts them up on a pedestal and makes it seem very appealing what they did. And this is a criticism that I think came out of left field for the film. I think that Scorsese and DiCaprio didn't expect this to happen. There was a very interesting piece in the LA Weekly or LA Times from a daughter of one of the people who worked with Jordan Belfort, and how what her father did has ruined her life and ruined many other people's lives, and she really chastised the film for making it look cool and really basically not showing the consequences of the actions. And so this has become a major hurdle for the Wolf of Wall Street's Oscar campaign, because I think, especially in light of what Wall Street has done even recently, I think that the industry doesn't want to look like they're further rewarding this bad behavior. Because, there's some question as to whether Jordan Belfort is making money off of this movie. He's trying to shop around a reality show now based on the buzz that Wolf of Wall Street has. So, they don't want to enable such a, a horrible person who is a criminal to continue to maybe do, once a criminal, always a criminal, kind of leopard change his spots. So this is a very difficult situation that not only the Wolf of Wall Street finds itself in, but Hollywood. So in their Oscar campaign, all of a sudden Scorsese and DiCaprio, and Jonah Hill is also working hard to do this, are trying very hard to make it clear that they do not sympathize with Jordan Belfort, that they're condemning him, and and that the film is not a celebration of Jordan Belfort's lifestyle, because they're trying to really drive that point home, because they're worried it's going to cost them potential Oscar nominations and wins. So the latest thing is their interview with Martin Scorsese on Deadline, on a website, a very popular industry website. I put a link below in the video description where you can read it. But basically, Scorsese's defense that if he had just, made this a morality tale, a clean, cut and dried morality tale, it would have just been like a TV movie. And that's the reason I wanted to bring this up. Not only because I think it's interesting about how this kind of is the narrative. We talk about behind-the-scenes narratives like Spielberg and Dalton Trumbo with Montezuma. This behind-the-scenes narrative of Scorsese and DiCaprio kind of, giving their stamp of approval to Jordan Belfort's lifestyle and what he did is kind of a narrative that Wolf of Wall Street doesn't want. There's also actually been some allegations that they have criminal financing for the film as well. And I think it's like Red Circle, but the company that financed the film is looking into legal actions because they feel that's slander, and potentially they don't want a criminal investigation on themselves. So this film is really trying to take control of its narrative, take it back. So, but my feeling is that the Wolf of Wall Street I think it's not fair, and I think it's sloppy to say that all they did was just lay bare what Jordan Belfort did, and so the audience can sophisticatedly take away the morality lesson and be appalled by seeing what they've done. But I think that that's not the case, because I think they only showed the positive of what Jordan Belfort did. They showed the drugs, the sex, the money, the great lifestyle he was able to have, the beautiful women he was able to be with, and then even at the end, so spoilers, if you haven't seen Wolf of Wall Street, skip to the viewer question right now, okay? Warning, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, I think that the really damning stuff particularly was at the end when he said, I was really scared to go to jail, but then I remembered I was rich. And they showed him just playing tennis, like it was like going to country club jail, which I think actually Jordan Belfort did go to. That does exist, but the movie didn't condemn that. It just was like, hey, remember you're rich. Even when you're a criminal when you're rich, you can get away with stuff. There's no real punishment. And then also that very final scene at the end when he's doing a self-help seminar and he turns to those people and says, do you want a pen? I thought that was so disgusting a scene because he was still taking advantage of people. He was still taking advantage of people who maybe didn't know as much and were eager to try and better themselves. It's almost like the opposite of the Pain and Gain. If you took Pain and Gain, I think deals with the opposite side of this equation, the people who are taken for a ride and what's going on with them mentally. And I think this is a more powerful film, actually. Some of you will not be able to believe I said that, but Pain and Gain is very powerful about wanting something for nothing and the trouble that can get you into. But Wolf of Wall Street is about the guy who sells you, nothing for something. And so it's like taking the Ken Jeong character from Pain and Gain and making a movie about him. And it was so disturbing to see that Jordan Belfort is still a criminal, still taking money from people. Donald Trump is being sued right now for Trump University, where he took $35,000 a pop to teach people about real estate. And people are saying the only thing they got for 35 grand was a picture with him in a cardboard cutout, a cardboard cutout of Trump, not even with Trump himself. And I have some concern that this movie is making Jordan Belfort, it's almost as if when you buy a ticket to see Wolf of Wall Street or, praise the film or if you give it an Oscar, you're buying a penny stock from Jordan Belfort. And I thought it was so disturbing on the film when he made that phone call and he was giving the curse finger to a guy who was just making a decision to trust him. Now, you might say, well, then Scorsese succeeded because you were disgusted by these things. And I think to some degree, yes, that did work, but I don't see that message coming across. People, when I see comments below in the video section, in the comment sections of the videos where I talk about Wolf of Wall Street and we discuss it in the reviews, a lot of people just say they thought it was funny and they thought it was cool and interesting and a great ride. No one's saying like, I'm appalled at this and this is disgusting and what can we do about it? So I think that's the problem there. And I think it would have been better if Scorsese had shown a full body picture. If Scorsese wants to just show what happened and let the audience judge, then he needs to show the full picture. He needs to show everything that happened. He needs to show the consequences of what the people that the money was taken from, and how it ruined their lives. And just basically all those elements and the little people that got trampled on by what Jordan Belfort did. And he's not doing that. He only showed the positive aspects and never any of the negative. And the end of the lesson at the end of the day seemed to be that there was no negative. What was the purpose of showing that FBI agent on the subway looking around? And it seemed to me that the point of that scene was to make it seem like the guy was like, you know what, maybe I would have been better off being Jordan Belfort at the end of the day too. I felt the movie did celebrate Jordan Belfort and what he did, and I have some concern that that's what audiences are taking away from it. So I think Scorsese playing this sophistication card is pretty low, because I think that he didn't make a sophisticated movie. And to just go and claim that it's too sophisticated and going over the heads of people and try to use that as a weapon, as an offensive, and be like, if you don't understand that this movie is condemning Jordan Belfort, you're not sophisticated enough, is really horrible and really, underhanded, because he just didn't make a sophisticated movie. And I hope that someone uses that argument against him. I hope that's where the narrative goes next. All right, so those are the three stories of the day. The viewer question, very long episode today. Thank you for sticking with it if you are. This question comes from Braden Messer. And it says, hey Grace, I love your show and look forward to it every day. Thank you, Braden. You are my main source for movie news, and I thank you for taking the time to do these videos. I appreciate that. Smiley face. Braden, you have no idea how much I appreciate your comment and all the comments that you guys write. As I said, I try to read as many as I can. And then, so the question Braden has is, how do you personally feel about Frozen's success at the box office and with other critics? How do you think it will do at the Oscars? And do you think it could come close to joining the $1 billion club? Thanks again, Grace. Well, thank you, Braden. And the reason I picked this question was because I've seen a number of you asking me how I feel about Frozen's success, and it is by far and away a runaway train, because I didn't like the film. And some of you haven't been so nice about it, just about one or two, but, you know. And I have to say, you know, the reviews that I give are, you know, that's a review, so it's a personal opinion, but I don't like that, you know, bleed over into my reporting. Because that would be unprofessional. But I'm not going to change my mind either about a movie. I still don't like Frozen. I still feel it has substantial flaws. But you know, I'm surprised at its success. And I think that, I don't know. I mean, but I respect its success. So let's talk about that. Bottom line is that I just think it's great when people want to see a movie so much, when there's so much love for a film, that people are excited to go to the movies again. That's the takeaway from this. That's my takeaway, at least. I think it's just so wonderful. I asked you yesterday how many times people had gone to see Frozen, and people wrote 5 times, 7 times. Someone said for Catching Fire, they saw that movie 13 times. It's just so great to see people want to go. I mean, I remember when I saw Beauty and the Beast as a kid, we had seen it, I think, for like the 4th time, and when we were leaving, this woman was like, how many times have you seen Beauty and the Beast? Because I think we were talking about seeing it multiple times, and we were like, this is like our 3rd or 4th time, and she was like, I've seen it 8 times, and her boyfriend was like, are you happy you've beat another group of people, how many times you've seen the film? And this, I'll never forget, that stayed with me, her joy of going to the theater and seeing a movie. And even though I didn't love Frozen, people are seeing it this much, that means it's becoming a special movie for them. And it's helping them fall in love with movie making in general. And you know, touching their hearts in a special way. It's important for everyone to have those movies that mean something to them. I love Speed Racer. Nobody loves Speed Racer. I mean, some of you do. It's great that we found our little Speed Racer, you know, cult of fans here. But in general, the public rejected that film. It doesn't make it any less special for me. It still makes me cry every time they have that big race at the end when he races his brother's spirit. I think that's just so touching and beautiful to behold. And just because I don't like Frozen obviously means a ton of people like it. So I think it's great. I think the movie industry needs this. I think Disney Animation needs this. And maybe I'll like the next film that they make. Because, you know, every film is a new opportunity. It's a new creative team. I'm sure that, you know, they're looking at they look back, you know, hindsight is 20/20, and they see some of the flaws. Maybe they notice them too. And they're like, okay, we'll fix that on the next round. But the bottom line is that they have a new group of characters. They have a new renewed interest in Disney. I don't like it when people say Disney is old and antiquated and it's a thing of the past. That really bothers me as a Disney fan. So anything that can just get people to be like Disney is current and exciting and new and hip is great. So I really support Frozen's success. I wish that I wish that a structurally stronger movie was enjoying this kind of success. I worry that this kind of success will maybe not make them take a closer look at the next round. That's where my real concern comes in when I see a movie like this succeed, when I see a movie like Gravity succeed, even though I think, you know, what the silver lining of that is that it's great technological steps forward, that it has a great female character in the lead. To see that kind of success for that's wonderful. And look what happened with Hunger Games. We all had huge problems with the first Hunger Games, but look how much they fixed it for the second. But that success allowed them to take that second step. So I guess maybe these are all the growing pains and we're talking interestingly about all movies with female leads. So maybe Hollywood is still trying to get a grip on telling female lead stories. And I take those stories very personally as a female moviegoer. And so that's why I think maybe I have more problem with it than some other people do. I mean, I really want to see these stories. I want to see female characters that are as good as male characters. But perhaps, you know, the first ones coming out of like the womb and, you know, their first steps and they're all still like got like the primordial ooze on them, you know, just this is the first step. So I'm taking a silver lining from it. And of course, it doesn't change my opinion, though. I still have the same problems with the movie. I mean, and you guys wouldn't want me to change my mind, because then how could you ever trust what my initial reviews were? You don't want to, you know, like a fair weather critic who just, you know, goes with the wind or is led around by popular opinion. I don't feel that that's what I should be doing. I don't think that would be professional. I mean, just telling you what I think you want to hear, I think nobody wins that way. And I do feel, I stand by all these problems that I have with the film. I think they still exist there. And I do know a lot of people are giving it a pass because it's just kind of what they want. It's enough of what they want. And so I wanted to further explain that. Also, some of you asked about, where's the disrespect for old films that you mentioned in Movie Math? I should have said the video. In the Top 10 Princess Songs video, if you go and you look at the comments of that video that I made, the disrespect for previous Disney films is just like through the roof. It was just the venom of some of these Frozen fans is just surprising. It'll freeze you to the bone. All right, so, and then also the other question that Braden has wanted to ask about, how do you feel about the film will do at the Oscars? I don't know. I think The Wind Rises is going to win Best Animated Feature. And also, I'm very excited to see that movie. I hope that's a good structural movie. I would hope that, you know, the Golden Globes, though, I think I don't know, no, it's not nominated for the Golden Globes, that's right. So I think Frozen could take the Golden Globes. But I don't think that I think that The Wind Rises is going to take the Oscar. But it could win Best Song. I don't know. I'm hoping that the Hollywood, you know, the voters look at Frozen and they go, okay, well, this is pleasant, but it's deeply flawed. Just because something's popular doesn't mean it's well made. You know, it doesn't mean it's not enjoyable, though, but just keep that in mind. I think, you know, it's important to realize that there are elements here that work, but just because a film's successful, I mean, this is a huge debate. This could be a 40-minute episode talking about this, but I think you're getting into a gray, murky area, but I think that Frozen's success shows that people want these princess movies, they want the musical, they want the lavish fairy tale settings. That's what people really want to see. And I think that that's what Disney's takeaway should be. Now imagine how much money they could be making if this was actually a really good, you know, solid story with great, I feel, with better storytelling, you know, a stronger script, if it was more, you know, a better film. But then, speaking of making money, the final part of your question, Braden, about do I think that Frozen could join the $1 billion club? At this rate, if you'd asked me just a week ago, I would have said no. But I think at the rate that it's going and the fact that, as many of you pointed out, it still has yet to open in Asia, it will probably join the $1 billion club at this point. I think there's a very good chance that it will. And this is also something that happens. When a film does so well, it starts to get the curiosity factor. And I think a lot of people, I've even seen some of you in the comments saying, well, maybe I should see Frozen if it's doing this well. And so I think Frozen is also starting to enjoy that benefit as well. The people are like, you know what, I should see it. Gravity benefited from that. There were long lines from Gravity. Avatar as well. When a movie makes this much money and is at the top of the box office for this long and has these kinds of headlines, this is why the studios want these headlines. You get people on the fence, or maybe even on the fence, we're decidedly in the I'm not going camp, they start to inch closer towards going because they feel if something is this popular in society, I should at least know what's going on. So that's my thoughts on Frozen's success. I hope the answer was helpful, Braden. I hope it's what you were interested in. Thank you for asking it, and thank you everybody for tuning in on this Frozen day and for watching such a long morning movie news. And I hope that you found it long but interesting. So thank you so much for tuning in. Write down below your thoughts for today, and I'll see you tomorrow morning. Bye.